Hi everyone, it's December 15th. Today we'll talk about Broadcom and Oracle, who just had a rough week in the market. And then we'll talk about Skills, which is a new lightweight tool calling framework OpenAI is starting to adopt. As you can hear, I actually have a very bad throat, but let's get into it. All right, so let's start with Broadcom. Broadcom actually had a pretty strong quarter. So they had 18 billion in revenue, which is around 28% increase year over year. And most of this is basically driven by their AI semiconductor revenue, which is up 74%. But still, on Friday, December 12th, the stock dropped more than 11%. And that was mainly because the company warned investors that custom AI processors are actually a lower margin business and it can pressure future profitability, right? Now, if you look back, Broadcom actually has a lot of orders. They actually have 73 billion dollars worth of orders that they have to ship in the next 18 months, and 21 of those $1 billion are actually tied to Anthropic, who have ordered the custom AI chips, which are going to be the Google's TPUs. So basically, the problem right now is that we're seeing unprecedented revenue numbers from a lot of companies, but the costs are also kind of insanely high. So investors also want to see some high margins. And wherever they see kind of any margin pressure, they kind of get spooked. All right. The other company we can talk about is Oracle. Now, if you remember, in September, Oracle actually signed a $300 billion contract with OpenAI, which is to build data centers for them and provide a lot of compute. Now, after that, their stock actually went up 36%. It was pretty awesome for them. But then investors actually got quite spooked because Oracle was funding that AI, all that infra built out by taking on a lot of debt, right? And I believe they also missed some revenue expectations in a quarter, so that kind of gave them extra scrutiny. And then what kind of followed is a report by Bloomberg that the OpenAI related data centers that they were supposed to start building will slip from 2027 to 2028. But later, Oracle did publicly deny those delays. But the damage has been done in the market, and now I think their stock is down 20% compared to where it was even before the OpenAI deal, right? So investors aren't just satisfied with contracts. They want proof that like all this CAPEX that is being kind of deployed will become revenue. All right. So now moving on to some exciting technology related news. OpenAI has added skills, something called skills, into places like the Codex CLI. It's kind of a pattern that's popularized by Anthropic. A skill is basically a folder with a skill.md markdown file and also has some kind of additional scripts that can be run to achieve whatever that skill is. The AI agent that's running basically preloads only the skill name, description, and kind of what it does and where it kind of lives. And the actual script or the kind of code lives in the disk. It's not loaded into context. So if you think about it, this is more of a lightweight approach to dealing with tools compared to something like MCP. MCP is short for Model Context Protocol. And if you remember, MCP is a standard for connecting an AI agent to external tools using MCP servers. Anthropic actually came up with MCP framework as well because they came up with skills as well, and now they have actually donated MCP to Linux Foundation, which is an open source foundation. So now the open source community will support it, and that's why we saw more and more companies kind of accepting MCP. Google, I think, just came out recently and said they'll add more and more MCP servers for their things like Gmail and Google Drive, etc. Right? Again, MCP does have some downsides compared to skills because MCP tools have to be loaded into context for an AI agent to be able to use them. Which is kind of, it takes up your context window, right? Now, if you remember, I shared a news that Anthropic actually came up with a tool search functionality where a model wouldn't, an AI agent wouldn't actually have to load the whole MCP, all the MCP tools at runtime. It would basically kind of search for those tools at runtime and kind of load them when needed. So they kind of came up with that. But with skills, this is not something you have to do. You get that functionality from the get-go, right? Another benefit of skills actually is that the complete tool or whatever the capabilities or functionality of that skill is kind of available to you in code wherever you are. So let's say if there is a skill to deal with a certain type of PDF, it's not working for you, you can then ask your own agent to update that skill to make it work for you, which is something you can't do with MCP because MCP servers are kind of written by somebody else, right? If it's a Gmail MCP server, then only Google probably can work on it, or it can be an open source MCP server, but like you can't do it at least at runtime at that when you're working on a system, right? So anyway, this is really exciting news, and it's entertaining to watch what like how this ecosystem is kind of converging. I love how Anthropic is coming up with new frameworks, and then the community is kind of accepting that, endorsing that, and using it, right? All right, that's a quick update for today. I hope I feel better tomorrow, and I'll get you some better updates tomorrow. All right, have a good night. Bye-bye.